The question raises, do I need help from a third party to make a claim? Not always. What I found is that most people are in no mental state to deal with the aggravation of a claim, but nothing riles me more than hearing those ads on TV or on the radio about some very high-profile law firms that sponsor a few very high-profile footy teams who will so-called no win, no fee, but they'll take 30% of your payout. In most cases, getting lawyers involved is not required, but it is a contract. So what you have to demonstrate is that whatever's happened to you fits the definition of what you bought. And that takes a little bit of skill, but certainly a death claim should never require professional assistance other than the mental state that you're in at the time. TPD, particularly default TPD, can be quite involved because there is a strict definition of what it means. So having someone in your court who understands the technique and what the words mean and what the case law says is valuable. But it really annoys me when I see people being stung for 30% of their payout by an ambulance chasing lawyer. Your advisor should be doing this for you. For complex ones, there are specialist claims handlers who we would defer to on some cases, but most cases are not that complicated, and most times they go through very simply. I've seen trauma claims process within a couple of weeks. You send the diagnosis from the doctor, fill out the form, check arrives in the mail. Death and terminal illness, really simple. Most IP claims are fairly simple. TPD claims is where they get more complicated because of the requirement to be totally disabled and permanently. And getting doctors to sign off on that can be time consuming. For mental health claims, it can often take a long time. The typical period is about 4 years from initial event to agreement from mental health, because doctors are often really reluctant to say you're never going to get better. I've got a very good friend who I look after. She had a car accident, I think it's 10 years ago now, but she's been on income protection claim for, I wouldn't be quite 8 years, income protection for 8.5 years. And she was a mortgage broker. Looks fine. If you sat next to her, you would never know there was anything wrong with her, but she's lost her ability to deal with numbers. So she's got a brain injury that stops her dealing with numbers, and no doctor will sign off that she's never going to get better. But she gets her income protection, so she's living a perfectly normal life, having her income replaced, and life goes on. But not even her doctor is prepared to say that she will never recover, and nobody expected this to take this long. So there can be complex medicals around TPD in particular, but you should not ever have to pay a lawyer 30 cents on the dollar. That's just ridiculous. Yes, and it really gets me when I'm listening to late night radio and I hear these ads. And where they're placed, they're obviously targeted vulnerable consumers who don't have the mental skills to deal with these things on their own and get talked into it. So think about a $1 million TPD payout. 30% is a big number. That pays for a lot of hours. So hopefully that covers that off. But it's life, income protection, trauma are all simple form fills with the right note from the doctor. TPD is where they get more complicated, especially with an ENEOC claim. And default insurers are particularly problematic because the wording's often poorer. So many default covers have, in addition to the inability to work clauses, they often have what's called an activities of daily living clause, which means that not only have you not being able to work, but you also have to be unable to do some of these activities of daily living, which are things like dressing, walking, shopping, eating. Generally only one or two of those, but it is a test that is a much higher bar to cross than its standard retail policy. So the moral of that story is, if you can, get a retail policy, even if you use your super to pay for it, and get a good advisor on your side. And in particular, avoid those ones that are sold on the radio with no underwriting required. There is an old saying that says you're much better off having the argument with the underwriter than with the claims assessor. So if there's anything interesting in your medical history, then deal with it at underwriting stage. And once you're in the system, then nobody can point to that and say that's a problem.